All right, good morning, everybody, or I guess afternoon now. This is the Platform App Builder Study Group, and we've got a couple presentations lined up for today. The first one is on, both of them are on data modeling and management, but the first one will be on changing field types, and the other one is choosing the appropriate field types. And Scott, if you are ready, I will let you go ahead and get us kicked off.
All right, sounds good.
Let me give you permission to share. I forgot to do that, so
All right,
there
so
you
do I
go.
click on share screen and that's
Share
it?
screen. Yep.
All right. Do. All right, let me go into presentation mode. All right, does it look good?
It does.
All right, great. All right, so what I'll be talking about is what to consider before converting fields and data types with additional restrictions when you convert them. So I have some really good news about this presentation. It's going to be short, and that's because there's not a lot of nuance in this topic. A lot of this is very open and shut. And I should also mention before I begin that I've only been using Salesforce for a year. Most of that has been going through Trailhead, and then I've been certified for the last 3 months. I've been volunteering for the last 2 months. So what I'm going to be telling you isn't based on practical experience, unlike our previous presenters. It's what I read. So I have theoretical knowledge on something I've never encountered. And a good analogy, I'm a history guy. This is a woodblock created by a Japanese artist in the 1800s depicting London, even though he had never been to London before. And I really love all the details here. I thought, okay, that looks pretty cool. That's not really accurate according to a photograph of what London looks like, but I like the interpretation of somebody imagining something without ever actually experiencing it hands-on. So that's what I have to offer for you today. And also what I can offer is, have you ever been in a presentation from a manager and you're wondering, does he know what he's talking about, or is information passing from his eyes to his mouth without really going through his brain? Well, this will be a little bit like that. So now you know what to hear in the future, and you can sort of rat out your manager if you're kind of wondering what's going on. So what I'll do is I'm going to present these different cases, some things to consider, and then during the end, the Q&A, maybe we can collectively discuss situations based on your experience in the past that has been tricky and you think that is worthwhile for us to be aware of. And I also found a few practice questions as well. All right, let's jump in. So one of the big things we have to consider is avoiding data loss. That if you should only convert custom fields for which no data exists, or you risk losing it. And I'm going to go through a bunch of different cases here. If you change the data type of an existing custom field, it can cause data loss in these following situations, and there's a bunch of them, like changing to or from type date or date time, changing to number from any other type, changing to percent from any other type, changing to currency from any other type, changing from checkbox to any other type, and changing from a multi-select pick list to any other type. And then other examples include changing to pick list, multi-select from any other type. And currently defined pick list values are retained when you change a pick list to a multi-select pick list. But if records contain values that aren't in the pick list definition, then those values are deleted from those records when the data type changes. Other cases that could lead to potential data loss include changing from auto number to any other type, changing to auto number from any type except text, changing from text to pick list, and changing from text area long to any type except email, phone, text, text area, or URL. Some other things to keep in mind is that if data is lost, any list view based on the custom field is deleted, and assignment and escalation rules can be affected. You also can't change the data type of any custom field that's mapped for lead conversion. If you change the data type of a custom field that's set as an external ID, choosing a data type other than text, number, or email can cause the field to no longer act as an external ID. And the option to change the data type of a custom field isn't available for all data types. So for example, existing custom fields can't be converted into encrypted fields, and encrypted fields can't be converted into another data type. A few other things to keep in mind is that in Salesforce knowledge article types, the file field type can't be converted to other field types. You can't change the data type of a custom field referenced by other items in setup, like visual force pages, Apex code, processes, or flow. And changing a custom field type can require changing many records at once. So to process these changes most effectively, your request can be queued and you might receive an email notification when the process has completed. Before changing a custom field's type, make sure that it isn't the target of a workflow field update or reference in a field update formula that would be invalidated by the new type. And if you encrypt a custom field using Shield platform encryption, you can't change the field type. So those are just some different situations to consider before converting fields that could lead to data loss. That's really the first part I wanted to bite off here. The other thing is that I want to focus on were data types with additional restrictions. And these data types have additional restrictions when you convert them. The first is auto number. If you convert an auto number field into a text field, the data in that field remains unchanged. You can convert a text custom field into an auto number field without losing data. Converting an auto number field into any other data type results in data loss. And the other note is that it can only contain a max of 30 characters. So before converting a text custom field into an auto numbered field, you have to change any records that contain more than 30 characters in that field. For the data type of formula, formula fields are read-only fields that can't be converted to any other data type. And you can't convert any other field type into a formula field. Next, pick list, which has data restrictions. If you change your custom pick list into custom checkboxes, it's easy. If you select checkbox as the new data type, you can choose which pick list values to map to checked boxes and unchecked boxes. You can change custom pick list into multi-select pick list without losing any data. Since your records only contain a single value of that pick list, the value is still selected, but users can select more values. You can convert relationship fields to non-relationship fields and vice versa, but only on external objects. If your organization has a large number of records, Salesforce displays a waiting page after you have requested to change a master detail into a lookup relationship or a lookup into a master detail relationship. And after you've created a roll-up summary field on an object, you can't convert the object's master detail relationship into a lookup relationship. Okay, so two more data areas. So a few more things on relationships. If there are any existing records on an object that have a null value set for the lookup field, the lookup relationship can't be converted to a master detail relationship. And if you're converting a master detail relationship to a lookup for a custom object on the detail side, the organization-wide default for the object is automatically updated to public read-write. And also, converting a lookup to a master detail relationship changes the organization-wide default to controlled by parent. So two other data types. The last two, text area long. When you convert a long text area field to an email, phone, text area, or a URL type field, the data in your record is truncated to the first 255 characters of the field. So if it has more than that, be aware of that. And lastly, text area rich. You can only convert rich text area fields into long text area fields. Any images are deleted the next time the long text area field is saved. After converting, markup is hidden in the long text area field, but is not removed from the record until you save the record. That way, the markup can be restored if you change your mind. All right, so those are things to keep in mind when you are changing a field type. So I have a couple of questions for you, and I'll give you some time to think about it. So think about this. What of the following statements are true about field type conversion? Choose two of them. We'll give, I don't know, what do you think, Terry? 30 seconds?
Sure, that works.
All right.
All right, anybody want to unmute and take a stab at that? Or if you prefer to use the chat window, you can do that as well. What do we think about the first one? Data can be lost when converting from an auto number to text.
I think that's definitely one of the two.
You think that one is one of them that is, which of the following are true?
It can be lost when going from.
Okay, anybody else agree, disagree on that one?
All right. Ready for answers?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm out of presenter mode, but I also can't see everyone. So I'll do this.
Okay.
This is what I found. So
yeah,
data can be lost when converting number to currency. Now, if you dispute, sometimes I didn't find this information. I was looking for study guides online. This is not from Salesforce.com, these specific questions. I was looking for examples. So if anyone has a disputation, then that's fine because I haven't.
Yeah, so on A, data can be lost when converting from an auto number to text. So we will often leverage this when we're doing a data migration, this kind of capability. We frequently will go from a text field so that we can import a value into that particular field and then convert it over to an auto number so that user, or from the user interface, things will begin to auto increment from there. I have gone back and forth on this one a few times with clients where we'll do maybe you've got multiple data conversions that are taking place, and maybe one department goes live and then and you've converted their information in, and then a little bit later you have to convert somebody else and bring them into the org, and so you can definitely go back and forth on A. So that one I've not had any issue with from a data loss perspective. So loss converting from an auto number to text. Yeah, have you had any issues with that, Carla? Have you had experience on that one?
No, I haven't converted auto number to text, but when I'm thinking through just the database and how that would look in the database aspect, I would assume you wouldn't lose data because the data types are similar enough that it would convert correctly. Auto number in Salesforce can have its varchar, right? So you can have variable characters, you can have symbols, and you can have letters and numbers, and you can convert that easily to text because the data types are very similar. So I'm thinking about it in the database aspect. And I think that is logical that you wouldn't have data loss there.
Yeah, that's been my experience on that one too. Data can be lost when converting from a number to a currency.
That would make sense.
Okay, and so give me a scenario there, Carla. What are you thinking on that one? Would that be like if we had decimal places on one and the other?
I think that would make a difference. But I was agreeing with B and D as the answers as well. But I think it would be the decimal, could be the iffy place there.
Let's see. Data can be lost when converting from a simple pick list to a multi-pick list.
I don't think you would lose data there, but like what he said in his presentation, it would be the values would exist in the multi-select.
Yeah, going the reverse, you would definitely lose data.
Yes.
Yeah. And then information can be lost when converting from a text rich to a text long.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too. As long as your text area long is big enough to hold what's in that text area rich, you should.
Except for the rich,
you'll lose,
and things like that.
Yeah, you'd lose the formatting for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. All right, good. Any other thoughts on these or questions from anybody? Did you have another one there, Scott?
I have one more question.
Okay.
An app builder needs to change the data types of a few custom fields. The app builder is not able to delete any and recreate any of the fields nor modify any Apex code. Which data type change will require the app builder to perform additional steps in order to retain existing functionality?
Needs to change. Oh. And how many are correct on this? Just
One.
one. Okay. Anybody have any guesses you want to throw out there before Carla and I jump in? All right, we got a very silent group on this.
Yeah,
So
I would say it's not C or D.
not C or D. Okay. So which ones would require an additional step or additional steps in order to retain existing functionality? So not C or D. In an Apex class, from a number to a text.
Because that would require modifying Apex code.
Right.
Yep. Yes, that would. And then changing from a data type of a field used in a report from text to encrypted. Interesting. Or to encrypted.
Well, in that I was thinking the behavior of an encrypted field in reporting is different.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, what about the lead conversion one? You specifically talked about that one with changes if something is a part of a lead conversion.
Right.
So which data types? I'm going back to the question again, make sure I have it in my head right. which data type change will require the app builder to perform additional steps in order to retain existing functionality?
I think, can I say?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's see. Let's do it.
I don't know, maybe B, just because of the lead conversion, you can't change it anyway because it's a part of a lead conversion.
That's where I was landing too. But I'll be curious what your answer is, Scott.
Yeah.
All right, ready, everyone?
Yep.
Drum roll. B.
B, yay! All right, good.
Y,
Good.
and then it's at the bottom. If you change the data type of any custom field that is used for lead conversion, that lead field mapping will be deleted. You would have to recreate the field mapping.
So that's the additional steps.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, see, and I think there's an argument for C that Apex,
I'll go back
if
to
you're
the question.
changing any field that is a part of an Apex class,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to yell at us.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, even if we're changing the data type, I think it yells at us.
I think so.
That
I
might
know
be
it does,
might
yeah.
be worth. I doubt that will be on this exam, but that'd be one that might be fun to play with just to see.
I think in this context though, the key sentence is nor modify any Apex code. So that kind of what
yes.
Lori said, that automatically kind of excludes that answer.
Yeah, good
So
catch.
I think that's why, I mean, as app builders, you don't need to know anything about Apex, but knowing that changing data types would affect any fields referenced in an Apex class, but it was already listed in the question itself. So kind of already excluded itself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
good
number is integer and text would be string.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think that would give you an error.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, good call. Can you go back to your first slides, Scott? I was kind of listening to it's the one where you had 1 and 2, the two. Yeah, avoiding data loss. Any convert custom fields. Oh, only convert custom fields where there will be no data loss. Change the data types. So we're saying that changing these could result in loss, is what we're saying, right?
Yes.
So a date to a date time, that one that one you would
You lose the time.
you'd lose time. Yeah. Number to any other type. Some of these I was thinking, well, this almost sounds like a safe harbor type statement that it's like, well, you could lose data, but I was kind of questioning if I've ever lost data with some of these. Maybe I haven't, just didn't know.
I don't perform a lot. I don't know. I don't perform a lot of data, a type change. I don't change a lot of types. So if I were to do it, I'd, obviously I'd export it all anyway and whatever.
Or try it in a sandbox.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
That's what I was curious about. So all these things I mentioned, for those who've had extensive professional experience, do these situations, which I mentioned, do they really come up that much? Are they part or?
I think
No.
what Terry said was really applicable in the org migrations. If you're
Yeah.
migrating and or adding on new departments to a newer org or any org really, and you need to make sure you're using fields across the whole org instead of creating new fields for every department, kind of a thing. It depends, but
yeah, I've converted numbers to text fields before. Primarily, I'll give you an example. Let's say I wanted to create a year field, and I create the year field and it's four digits long. And then I go and I look in my UI, and all of a sudden it's 1000 or 2020 with a comma in there. And it's like, oh crap, I don't want a comma in my year. It doesn't make sense to. And so I have converted those, and I've not, to my knowledge, I've never lost any data converting a number to a text. So I was kind of curious, I guess, with some of these. That's why they kind of, to me, felt a little bit like safe harbor to some extent. Yeah, you could, but I can't say that for sure on some of them. I don't know what you'd change a text box to. That's just a Boolean field of true, false. I don't know that I've ever changed one of those. If I do, I would change it to a pick list of yes, no, which means I'd have to recreate it and remove the data. So good. Very nice stuff. Any questions from anybody on this particular topic? See if you can stump Scott since he's new.
What I will do is I'll use the classic teacher technique I used in schools of, if someone asks me a question I don't know the answer to, I would say, that's an interesting question. I'm going to open up the floor. Would anyone like to respond to that?
Yeah, awesome. That's very good. Very good. Well, very good job, Scott. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice. And I believe we have next is it Lori? Are you next for us?
I am next.
All right.
Let me share the screen. Alrighty. Can everybody see?
Looks good.
Okay. Awesome. So I was realizing as Scott went through his presentation, some of this is actually a precursor because it's understanding what all of the different custom field types are. But I think going through, and I have a little bit different level of experience than Scott. I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem since 2005. I don't have a million certifications though. Right now I only have 2 certs, the email specialist and my admin cert. So I'm trying to make good and take my real world experience and go get my certification so it can actually reflect
good for
the
you.
experience that I have. Yeah. But even with that, even having been in the ecosystem for quite a while now, going through and studying this, I mean, every time I go through a trail or every time I do something like this, I either remember something that I had forgotten years ago or I learned something brand new. So this is a great exercise.
Yeah.
Alrighty. All right, so we're going to talk about custom field types. So first we'll talk about some items that you need to consider when you're creating a custom field. And then secondly, we'll go through all of the different custom field types. And there's a lot of them. So I've tried to group them logically. So it's not just, enumerating, here's all of the different field types. And then lastly, we'll look at some use cases. And on this slide, I listed, Terry, I tried to go into the spreadsheet and add my resources there, and I wasn't able to because it was locked.
Okay.
So I listed my resources on this slide.
I'll get them added for you then.
Okay, awesome. And then the last resource I used, I know wasn't on the spreadsheet that Carla and Terry, you guys had provided, but my husband actually just got his app builder certification a few months ago, and he used the Focus on Force Certified App Builder Study Guide. So I used that.
Yeah, that is an excellent resource as well, for sure.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so from a considerations perspective, when you're selecting your custom field, you really need to think about it as a data type that corresponds to an API data type, meaning data that can get written to the field via API and data that can get updated on the page by the user. So other things to consider when you're selecting your field type: your custom field name and label need to be unique for each object, so you can have the same name on 2 different objects. If you don't make it unique per object, it will cause issues with your merge field. There is a limit of custom fields per object. So this I had to read through a few different times to remember exactly how it worked. So there is a limit per edition that you're using. So for example, if you're on the Enterprise Edition, you get a total of 500 custom fields per custom object. But say you install a managed package, that could add an additional 300 fields on your custom object, which would give you a total of 800 fields per custom object. Does that make sense? Clear as mud?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay, awesome. You can also define a default value for checkbox, currency, your date and date time, email, number, percent, phone, pick list, text area, and URL fields. You can set your fields as required when you're creating a custom field, but this does make it required for all users and all record types for that particular object. So that's an important distinction. I know in my experience, excuse me, there's usually an exception where a certain group, doesn't want to have to fill in the field, and so making it required up front is generally not ideal, and we have to add permission sets and permissioning on top of it to really make it work for the business. Excuse me. Custom settings and external objects also only allow a subset of certain data types, and we'll get into more of this in just a second. And you can't add multi-select pick list. That should be rich text area or dependent pick list to opportunity splits. So here's the fun page that I'm sure we've all seen a million times, but it's funny. I hadn't really remembered why it was organized the way it's organized. So at the top, you've got all of your read-only fields. In the middle, you have all of your relationship fields. And then at the bottom, you have all of your other custom fields. So these are your custom settings field types. So as mentioned earlier, this is a subset of field types that are available for your custom settings. And then from a relationship custom field type perspective, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because both Matt and Scott have talked to these in their presentations, but this is just a quick overview of what types of relationships are available on each object. So specific to the custom object, since we're talking about custom field types, you have your lookup relationship, your external lookup relationship, and then you also have your master detail relationship, but that will only be available on a custom object when a master detail relationship doesn't already exist. So let's take a look at the first of the other custom field type options. So we have auto number. So this field, as mentioned earlier, is read-only. It auto-assigns a unique number. It has a max length of 30 characters, but 20 of these are reserved for the prefix and suffix text. You can define a specific display format, and if you click the helper text when you're creating an auto number field, it pops up this great little guide that I had completely forgotten about because I hadn't done an auto number field in quite a while. It shows you exactly what your variables look like that you can add to customize how your auto number displays, and then also gives you examples of what that display format looks like. including how your leading zeros would display. It's not available for external objects, and it can be an external ID. So a note on this for external IDs on custom fields, those are different than external IDs on external objects. So you get a standard external ID as part of your external object. But for a regular custom object, you can take certain field types and you can make those external IDs. And you can have up to 25 of those on each custom object. All right, so formula fields. A formula field calculates your values based on other values or fields like merge fields. So for example, it can be used for field mapping between objects. And we did this as part of an implementation we're working on at my company right now, where we mapped a case field to an account field via a really easy formula. It is, again, a read-only field. The return data type must be specified. So if you look over to your right-hand side, this is all of the return data types that you can have for a formula field. And you can get around some of these. So you can actually include an image in a text return data type by using image and adding in either a static resource or a URL. Your numbers round up in formula fields, and it's not available for external objects. And we'll talk a little bit more about the rounding up in a minute. All right, next field type is roll-up summary. So this again is read-only, and it displays a record count of related records or calculates the sum, minimum, or maximum value of the related records. And it is a master detail relationship. So the field is created on the master side, and the related records must be on the detail side. So I think the most common example you hear of this is opportunities that are related to accounts. The types of fields that you can calculate in a roll-up summary field depend on the type of calculation. So for number, currency, and percent fields, these are available when you select sum as your roll-up type. So that's this screenshot down here. You can see sum. Number, currency, percent, date, and date time fields are available when you select min or max as the roll-up type. And here's an example of that. So a couple other things, opportunity records roll up on account. You can force a mass recalculation option, and that will manually recalculate your values. So for example, if a child record is deleted, if you do automatic calculation, it may take up to 30 minutes, or you can force this by doing a manual recalculation, which will probably occur more quickly. A roll-up summary field also prevents conversion from master detail to lookup relationship, and it's also not available on external objects. Alrighty, so checkbox is pretty straightforward. It allows users to check a box. It's a Boolean true-false value. And for the data import wizard and the weekly export tool, 1 equals true equals checked, and 0 equals false equals unchecked. For currency fields, you can automatically format your data as currency, which can be useful when you're exporting that field to a spreadsheet. So this is the rounding up that I was talking about earlier. Salesforce uses the round half to even tie-breaking rule. And here's an example. So 23.5 becomes 24, but 22.5 becomes 22. So what this means is that you don't just automatically round up to the next number, you round up to the next number if it's an even number. If it's not an even number, then you're actually rounding down. All right, you also have your decimal places defined, and your values can lose precision after 15 decimal places, and it is also not available for external objects. Okay, so the next types of fields are date, date time, and time. So date allows date entry or selection from your pop-up calendar. And that's your little calendar icon here. Your date time allows date entry or selection from a pop-up calendar as well as time entry. And there's a couple of distinctions here between Classic and Lightning. So in Classic, date time is a single field. In Lightning, it's 2 fields like you see over here to your right. In reporting, you can limit your data to specific dates using any custom date field. So this is date or date time. So time is just that. It includes only your time entry, which can be hours, minutes, seconds, and milliseconds in Classic, but in Lightning, will only allow hours and minutes. And here's an example of the error that you get if you try to enter in seconds and milliseconds. The other thing to remember is that in Salesforce, all times are stored as GMT/UTC, but the times display in the user and company time zones that are specified. I know that that's tripped me up a couple times, so I wanted to make sure I brought that out. Yeah. Alrighty, so the next field's email and phone number. So an email field allows users to enter up to 80 characters, and it's auto-validated based on the @ being there and the .com being on the end. If it's included on contact and lead objects, you can automatically use that email to send to if you're sending an email from Salesforce, but emails will not be logged against the record that contains that email address. It also allows unique and external ID. So unique meaning if I select that when I create the field, it will only allow unique values in that particular field. And it cannot be used for mass or list emails.
Ask a question there, Lori, is that all right?
Yeah.
On that second bullet, can the piece there that the email will not be logged on the record, that's is that referring to if I click on the email link itself once it's entered? If I include, I'm just trying to think.
No, I think it's saying it won't automatically relate. So say I have an email field on a contact, and then I send an email to that contact, it's not automatically going to relate that email to the contact. It would relate the email to like the case that I sent the email from.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I could get to the contact from the email, I think is that where you're going? Like if I went into the sent email.
Where I was going was just on when would it log and when wouldn't it log on that contact's record. That's where I was trying to think through that. So if included on contact and lead is, well, and also I kind of wonder if maybe this is referring to the fact that we're adding a custom email field and not using the out of the box email field. Maybe that's that's probably the direction this is going.
I think that's exactly it. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense to me now.
It wouldn't log it is in the activity section as an email.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. Cool. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Awesome. So for phone number fields, click to dial functionality is auto-enabled with Salesforce CRM Call Center. And then for both email and phone fields, they can be encrypted with Shield platform encryption. So there are certain fields that you can encrypt just natively in Salesforce, and then there are other fields that required Shield platform encryption now that product's available. Okay, so geolocation fields. Geolocation fields identify your locations by latitude and longitude and allow calculation of distance between locations. Geolocation is a compound field, which does bring a few special considerations with it. So it counts towards your limits as 3 custom fields, 1 for latitude, 1 for longitude, and 1 for internal use. It's displayed as read only, so you'll see your latitude and your longitude. And when you go to edit it, you have to edit each individual latitude and longitude field. It is supported, so as a compound field, it is supported for SOAP and REST APIs and SOQL with limitations. So the limitation with SOQL is that you have to enter the location before you enter the latitude and longitude. If you try to reverse that order, you'll get an error. You must also use individual field components for Apex, Visual Force, data loader, and lookup filters. Geodata integration rules automatically add the field for account and that's both billing and shipping geolocation, contact, lead, and then for field service lightning, it also adds it for the work order object. You do have limited formula functions, which are is blank, is changed, and is null, and you cannot use the equality and comparison operators with a geolocation field. It's not available in dashboards or schema builder, and it's not available for custom settings or external objects. Alrighty, so let me take a pause. Any questions so far?
Doing great.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So the next set of fields are number, percent, and AI prediction. And my company, we currently don't have Einstein Analytics, so I found the AI prediction to be very interesting. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But for number fields, it allows the users to enter any real number, and it removes any leading zeros. It uses the same round half up tie-breaking rule that's used by formula fields, and it can be an external ID. For percent, it allows users to enter a percentage number as a decimal that is then converted to a percentage. And for this one as well, your values lose precision after 15 decimal points. And you will hit a runtime error if your percent sign is added with 16 or more decimal places. So for AI prediction, this is specific to Einstein Prediction Builder. So it creates this custom field to store and display prediction scores on records. And it's either created through the setup flow in the Einstein Prediction Builder, or it can also be created as a number field, and then you have the option to select AI prediction if you have Einstein prediction products. It can also be referenced by custom formula fields. Alrighty, so pick list and pick list multi-select. So we can have either standard, which is a single value, or multi-select, which is multiple values. It's custom defined, or you can create a global pick list value set. You can restrict your pick list, which means that only the custom defined values can be used, even if you update via an API. Other values can be imported if the pick list is not restricted. And global pick list value sets are shared across fields and objects and can be used in pick list dependencies, but they cannot be added via API. For your
I was going to say one other caveat there for your global pick list is that it is always going to be a restricted pick list on your global ones, which for me personally I find a little frustrating at times, but yeah, just know that as well.
Okay, awesome. I can add that to the deck. Alrighty. So dependent pick list allows the values in one pick list to be defined by a controlling pick list or checkbox field. So a dependent pick list can be multi-select, but standard pick list fields cannot be dependent. Custom pick list fields can be controlling or dependent. So this is the distinction between a standard pick list field and a custom pick list field. A deactivated pick list value does not impact existing values, and these options aren't available for external objects. Alrighty, so for text and text area, I decided to just create a little matrix because I think it makes it easier to see the character limits stacked up against each other and the differences between the fields. So for your text field, that's your standard alphanumeric that allows up to 255 characters. Your text encrypted field, so this is if you want to do something like store credit card information in your Salesforce org, but you only want the last 4 digits to be shown to your service agent, you would use the text encrypted field. It can include alphanumeric characters and symbols, and it's up to 175 characters. Your text area is when you want to be able to not have kind of run-on text in your field, when you want to be able to break it up and include line breaks, and it can be up to 255 characters. Your text area long is 256 characters to over 100,000 characters. And your visible lines in your layout, you can have 2 to 50, and you select that when you set up your custom field. And then for a rich text area, it's very similar to text area long. Your visible lines are a little bit different, where you can have 10 to 50 visible lines. And the major difference between these two, between the text area long and rich, is with the rich text field, you get your formatting capability that we were talking about earlier during Scott's presentation. You can also add images, and it's max 1 meg if you add an image to a text area rich field. So there are some considerations with each. You can have uniqueness specified on a text field, and it can be either case sensitive or insensitive. You can encrypt a text field with Shield platform encryption, and you can set a default, and it can be an external ID. For an encrypted field, it uses the Salesforce 128-bit AES standard encryption. You can use classic encryption on this field, and it's a mass value unless the view encrypted data system permission is enabled, and there's no default. So for text area, length cannot be specified. So it is up to 255 characters. For text area long and text area rich, you can specify the length. For text area long, you'll see just the first 999 characters in reports, and the first 255 characters displayed in a page layout. And there's no default that you can set there. And then for text area rich, it can contain HTML formatting, as well as the actual formatting that a user can select on the page layout. And there's no default. So from an exclusion perspective, you have your text encrypted is not available on external objects. It can't be used as a filter in list views, reports, or roll-up summary fields, and there's no conversion, which I think Scott mentioned in his presentation. Text area long fields aren't available for activities or products on opportunities, and text area rich fields are not available on external objects.
Can you search on a text encrypted field?
I don't believe you can.
Right. Right. Yeah, unless that's changed recently, you cannot.
Yeah. Which would make sense that you
Right.
wouldn't, because there's sensitivity around that. So I can add that one to the deck as well. Right.
Very nice.
Any other questions on text and text area?
I like that you had the 256 character minimum on the text area long and rich. I never even thought about them having a minimum length, but that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I had never really thought about that either.
Yeah, that never dawned on me. So it doesn't mean you can't just type a single character in one. It just means that in the data structure, it's going to be stored at least at 256 characters. So that's interesting. Very cool. Very cool.
Okay, and here's some examples of what these various fields look like in Classic on the left-hand side and in Lightning on the right-hand side. So you can see here's your images and your rich text example and your line breaks and your other types. And then here's your encrypted. I don't know if you guys can see it with my menu popping up there. Hold on. And at the very bottom on the left-hand side, you'll see the text encrypted example. And you can choose what your encryption looks like there. Alrighty. So the last field is the URL field, which it allows users to enter a website address up to 250 characters. 50 of those characters are displayed in the page layout for the user. In Classic, when you click on a URL, it opens in a new window. In Lightning, internal URLs open in the same window, but external URLs open in a new browser window. And along a similar vein, in Classic console apps, your URL opens in a new workspace tab, but in the Lightning console app, internal URLs open in a new workspace tab and external URLs open in a new browser window. When you're clicking on an external URL, you will see modal asking for permission unless you disable your browser pop-up blocker, and a URL field can be encrypted with Shield platform encryption. Okay, so I've got a few use cases / mock exam questions. The end here, so the first one is your company needs a field on the account object to track how many opportunities are closing within the next 30 days. What type of field can be used? And this is one answer.
Matt, you want to take that one? Unmute if you would.
I'm still reading it, but
Yep.
I'm happy to. Just to track how many?
So it's showing you a count of opportunities on your account object.
So that's just a number field, right?
Okay. They look through all of them, and it will end up being a sort of a number type field. But if we want it to automatically show up, what would be our option?
Workflow.
No, I was trying to say, could you get there with the workflow? No, no, wouldn't be able to get there with workflow. This one, and I'm assuming, Lori, tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming I'd use a roll-up summary here.
That is correct.
Yeah, because the roll-up summary allows me to automatically calculate a count, and that would then show up for us. So we could use a filter on that roll-up summary to indicate that we only want the ones that are within the next 30 days. So yeah, good thoughts. Yep, awesome. All right.
Sorry.
No, all good.
Do we have time?
Yeah. I was going to say, I was just going to pick on somebody else. Meredith, are you still with us?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so second use case, your company needs to flag leads with one or more business units. A field should be added to capture the applicable business units on the lead record, but there is no need to report on this field. What is the best field type? And again, this is one answer.
At first I thought text area because that
So with business units, I'm assuming that's going to be a known entity. So I might have, say, an accounting department, I might have a sales department, may have human resources, may have customer service. So it's a known values for that business unit. And I would want, and Laura, you can jump in here if you if I go off track with what you're thinking, but I would want to make sure people are selecting something that is a standard value.
okay.
Does that change your thoughts on that?
So yeah, you could do pick list.
Okay.
But I guess if there's multiple business units, and I always hear multi-select pick lists are major no-no, so I just never want to pick that. But I should probably research why that's so bad. I know it makes reporting difficult, so maybe it's multi-select.
That would be my guess here too. And the key there is that they don't need to report on the field. That's kind of a giveaway for me too.
Yep. Meredith, you are correct. And that's exactly what I was thinking. We try to stay away. I think everybody tries to stay away from multi-select pick lists because they do prove to be problematic. And even if initially you don't think there's a reporting component to it, invariably 6 months down the road, somebody decides that they do want to report on it, and then you've got a problem. So yeah.
Yeah, what they do in a report is they'll look like a comma delimited string, and so it just makes it a little bit goofy to report on them.
Yeah. Okay, so the last use case is your sales team has requested a credit risk field on the opportunity object display red, yellow, or green based on the number value in the credit score field. So it's two different fields, the credit risk field and the credit score field. What is your best option?
I'm going to probably butcher your name. Is it Karthik? Are you still with us? Do you want to take this one? If you're there, unmute yourself and take a stab. Okay, not seeing him unmute. So, Scott, you want to take it? And you're muted as well there, sir.
All right, there we go. All right. Formula.
Is that your final answer? Very good.
Yep, perfect.
Yeah, with formula field, you're able to set those up with an image. The other thing you can do in a formula field is create a URL, a hyperlink as well in a formula field, and that's sometimes quite helpful to be able to do as well. Very good.
Okay, that was the last one.
All right, perfect timing too. We are right at the top of the hour, so awesome job. And let's let me share my screen again. We'll see who we have up next real quick. So oh yes, and a reminder, next week we are pushing our meeting to Wednesday, because those of you in the Kansas City group will be we have our Kansas City user group meeting on Thursday, and I'll be presenting there as well. So hopefully all of you will make it to the Thursday event. But we have 3 topics for next week. We have Meredith, Tanner, and I'm going to screw up that name. I'm horrible at names if you haven't figured that out yet. You 3 are up for next week, and I'll shoot you an email just to make sure that you're aware of it. And if you have any questions, just like we've done with everybody else, feel free to reach out to Carla and I, and we will help you out with your topics. So with that, thanks everybody, and we will see you on Wednesday next week. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.